Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jam Vishvat Paramahansa Privacharya Ashtodhra Stutis Divine Graces Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki All glories to assembled devotees All glories to assembled devotees All glories to assembled devotees All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskrutyam Naron Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishiki. Today we are reading from Canto 4, chapter 20, text 18. Sprushantam padayo premna व्रीडितं स्वेन कर्मणा शतकृतं परिष्वज्य विद्वेषं विसर्जः स्पृशन्तं पादयो प्रेम्णा व्रीडितं स्वेन कर्मणा शतकृतं परिष्वज्य विद्वेषं विसर्जः स्पृशन्तं पादयो प्रेम्णा व्रीडितं स्वेन कर्मणा शतकृतं परिष्वज्य विद्वेषं विसर्जः Matajis. Sprushantam, touching, padayoho, the feet, premna, in ecstasy, vriditam, ashamed, svena, his own, karmana, by activities, shatakrutum, King Indra, parishvajya, embracing, vidvesham, envy, visasarja, gave up, ha, of course. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupada. As King Indra was standing by, he became ashamed of his own activities and fell down before King Pṛthu to touch his lotus feet. But Pṛthu Maharaj immediately embraced him in a great ecstasy and gave up all envy against him for his having stolen the horse meant for the sacrifice. Purport. There are many cases in which a person becomes an offender to the lotus feet of Vaishnava and later becomes repentant. Here also we find that although the king of heaven, Indra, was so powerful that he accompanied Lord Viṣṇu, he felt himself a great offender for stealing Pṛthu Maharaj's horse that was meant for sacrifice. An offender at the lotus feet of Vaishnava is never excused by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are many instances illustrating this fact. Ambrish Maharaj was offended by Durvasa Muni, a great sage and a mystic yogi. And Durvasa also had to fall down at the lotus feet of Ambrish Maharaj. Indra decided to fall down at the lotus feet of King Pṛthu, but King Pṛthu was so magnanimous a Vaishnava that he did not want Maharaj Indra to fall down at his feet. Instead, King Pṛthu immediately picked him up and embraced him, and both of them forgot all the past incidences. Both King Indra and Maharaj Pṛthu were envious and angry with each other. But since both of them were Vaishnavas or servants of Lord Viṣṇu, it was their duty to adjust the cause of their envy. This is also first class example of cooperative behavior between Vaishnavas. In the present days, however, people are not Vaishnavas. They fight perpetually among one another and vanquish without finishing the mission of human life. There is a great need to propagate Krishna consciousness movement in the world so that even though people sometimes becomes angry and malicious towards each other, because of their being Krishna conscious, such rivalry, competition, envy can be adjusted without difficulty. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamsha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpataru Brasha Kripa Sindhupya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this verse is exhibiting the excellent behavior between the two Vaishnavas. Well, let's see some background before this verse. So King Pṛthu wanted to perform 100 horse sacrifices, as different people take different vows or different sankalpas. But the main intention of that is to please Lord Krishna. So in that, as a king, to establish the dharma at the same time, that was his personal goal he kept, that he will perform hundreds of sacrifice. And as he was performing this thing, the Indra became intolerant to his performance of the sacrifices. Because Lord Viṣṇu himself comes along with many exalted personalities to attain the sacrifice of Pṛthu Maharaj. And then various gifts that were offered in this sacrifice. And somehow or other, Indra, he steals the horse that was meant for that is like the sacrificial horse. And for that purpose, he takes the form of heretics. And then as he steals the sacrificial horse, naturally King Pṛthu protects his horse and he sends his son to bring back the horse. And then Indra again steals that horse. And then what happens is like Pṛthu Maharaj's son, somehow or other, he hesitates to kill the Indra. And then what happens is that the priest who were officiating the yajnas, they think that this nuisance has to be stopped. But if a person who is a host, he cannot perform any violence when he is performing the sacrifice. Then the purpose of sacrifice will be defeated. So they take the responsibility on themselves. And they were so powerful enough that they would chant certain mantras and Indra will come and just fall into the sacrificial fire. But then the superior authorities, Brahma, he intervenes in the situation. And then he tells Pṛthu Maharaj the reasons that why he should not kill Indra. So Brahma says that there is no need for you to perform more sacrifices. Please give up your anger and accept it's like the supreme will of the Lord. And then as you are determined to perform yajna, and Indra is determined to stop that, and what is resulting is the irreligion is spreading. So you please remember what is your purpose of incarnation. And on the advice of Lord Brahma, Pṛthu Maharaj gives up his ambition of performing 100 sacrifices. And then everyone there becomes like satisfied with Pṛthu Maharaj's behavior. And then what we see in this verse, that when Pṛthu Maharaj forgives Indra, so what happens is because of the knowledge, the person understands what is the nature of this material world. And true knowledge will definitely result into detachment from this world. So detached person is not so much malice towards the others. At the same time, they are not carried away by the Maya. And here we see when Lord Viṣṇu himself appears. And when Lord Viṣṇu comes, he comes along with Indra. As Brahma and Viṣṇu both, Viṣṇu and Brahma, both of them, they advise Pṛthu Maharaj to just give up these things. And Pṛthu Maharaj, like being a magnanimous Vaishnava, he forgives him and makes friendship with the King Indra. So what happens is here we see that the Lord is pleased more with Pṛthu because he stopped 100 sacrifice. So what did he sacrifice? He sacrificed his own false ego. And sacrificing of one's own false ego is the most pleasing to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So qualitatively, if you see, the sacrificing of ego was considered more important. And quantitatively, if you say, Indra had a satisfaction of having that record in his name that he performed 100 sacrifice and Pṛthu Maharaj just 99 sacrifice. But the basic thing is what pleases Krishna, not the quantity. What pleased Krishna is that he sacrificed his ego, he gave obedience to the superior authority, he took back his own will and surrendered. Usually what happens is in this world, unless there are challenges, we will not get the opportunity to exhibit our surrender. So in one sense, we see that Pṛthu Maharaj is such a Shaktavesha avatar, and he's such an empowered person, and he's doing his best to establish the dharma, which is for the welfare of all the people in this world. But still some obstacles come. But when obstacles come, that's an opportunity for us to exhibit our surrender. And then many times what happens is, we may get carried away by the passion of activities and we forget the purpose of the activities. So passion of Pṛthu Maharaj was to perform 100 Ashwamedh sacrifices. But while doing, he did not forget that ultimate aim of all these sacrifices is to please Lord Vishnu. So if Vishnu is pleased with me at 99 sacrifice, let me stop it. So many times what happens is we get carried away by our projects or activities that we are doing it. We become attached. We feel like no, this is our service to our own Guru Maharaj. But what is most pleasing to Guru Maharaj is the cooperation between the devotees, not the quantitatively results that we produce through our projects. So here we have seen that Pṛthu Maharaj kept the real goal in the mind, that is pleasing Krishna. We also have an example where Brahmanas were performing excellent sacrifices when Lord Krishna was personally present over there. And they were so expert in chanting the mantras and performing all the rituals. And when Lord Krishna wanted to eat the offerings that they were supposed to give it to him, they did not give it to him. But whereas like the Brahman Patnis could understand the real meaning and they could give whatever they had for the pleasure of Krishna. So many times it happens that we may get carried away by the projects that we're doing it, but we have to see that actually the purpose of the activity is that Lord has to be pleased, the Vaishnavas has to be pleased, and this is very essential. And here we have seen that there are certain circumstances that comes where we need to take the advice of the third party who is actually giving us good advice. The third party understands that what's happening in the situation. But one has to have an open mind and heart to hear the advice. And here we find the Pṛthu Maharaj had that open mind and heart. And that is why he could listen to them. And what happens is once whatever incidents that is happening, but if we take a neutral stand and see that incidents, then it's very easy for us to understand the situation. Many times what happens is like whatever events that we are facing it, we always have our own lenses and our mind convinces us that our viewpoint are the best. And then mind also gives so many justifications for holding on to our views. But sometime if we just pause, we take ourselves out of the situation, and then as a third party, if you see in a neutral manner the whole situation, then we can understand that what is actually happening and where we need to correct ourselves. That is why it is said, like if you are facing any crisis, if you are going through any crisis or having some confrontational situations, then if you pause everything and you think for a while that this situation your friend, your colleague is going through, and then if you like you have to advise your friend who is going through certain crisis, and then you will find that because human mind is very expert in giving advice to others, not to ourselves. So what happens is like when we just take ourselves out of that situation and we think that my friend is in this situation and I have to advise my friend how he should be acting in such circumstances. And then you will see, you will come up with so many solutions rather than justification of our stands. And then what happens is then you will understand the real picture and you will make a proper decisions in that things. And here Pṛthu Maharaj was very fortunate enough that Lord Brahma himself intervened in the situation. Lord Viṣṇu himself intervened in this situation. Because what happens is in this material world, like everybody gets carried away by the material desires. And that is why we don't find any true friendships here in this material world, because everybody feels very insecure. Only those who are very secured person, they can delegate, they can see things in a proper way. But if we have material desires, if we are attached to certain things, then we have a fear that we will lose that thing, and that's how we become insecure. And that is why many times, like, we see people are a bit scared to have a friendship with others. And usually we see the things in the world according to our own vision, according to our mindset, and that is why it is said, Atmaman Bandhate Jagat, that you see this whole world as per your viewpoints, as per your attitude. And then, like, we have seen so many leaders are becoming insecure. Like in Second World War, we find that Russian leader, the Stalin, he was so insecure and he was always fearing that somebody will overcome my power. And he had a lot of powerful generals, and he was always so cautious that none of them they revolt and take his position. And what was his strategy for that? He used to kill all his close associates. And because of that, like in the sense in the World War II, there was certain situations where his generals could have won the war couple of months before, but they would have got the credit of winning it. So their own president didn't want that they should get that credit. So he kept on giving certain orders by which the whole thing got delayed. So this is what happens is for the leader, the insecure leader is the most dangerous to the organization because his whole consciousness is how my post remains secure, and they are willing to do anything to protect that post. And that is why, like, we see Srila Prabhupada, the great example, that because he was such a secure leader, he could empower so many of his disciples. And all his disciples could take this Krishna conscious movement to a great heights. They achieved so much. And many times we find there are many other spiritual organizations are known by just their leader or founder. And after that founder goes, everything collapses because that leader has never empowered any of his followers who can be qualified to take up their mission in his absence of his leader. So that is why we have to understand, like, to a certain extent, Indra is also appearing as an insecure person, and that is why, like, he is doing those things. Now, Indra is also super intelligent person. He is not an ordinary person. He has, since he has got the qualification to become the king of demigods, that means he had definitely a very pious background, intelligence, good credits with him. And first he steals the horse, and he sees that his attempts are frustrated. Again he makes a second attempt to steal the horse. In one sense, with the first attempt, with intelligence should have uh, acted in a proper way. But knowing well that his first attempt is frustrated, still he does the second attempt until, like, the Supreme Lord has to intervene in the situation. So that is why, like, we have seen how intelligently Lord Brahma and Lord Viṣṇu, both of them, they're handling the situation. They didn't go first to the Indra. They went first to the Pṛthu Maharaj, because they know that if you have to correct, we should correct Pṛthu Maharaj because he will listen. Now situation comes, sometimes we have to correct the people. But if you know that person is not willing to be corrected, and if you want to try to correct him, he becomes more angry or worse side of his comes up, and a person who want to correct him, he also gets frustrated. So that is why, like, as a great lesson we learn here is like, how do we correct the situation? Because Pṛthu's attitude is a great lesson for a successful manager. That this is like how the management in the mode of goodness is considered as like, you know the nature of the person and then engage him accordingly, because he can see the things very clearly. But in management in a mode of passion, what happens is like he doesn't see the things clearly. So we seen like here that Pṛthu Maharaj is one great leader, and Indra is also another great leader. So Indra, we can understand that he's also devotee. He also assists Lord in his plan. But Indra, we can say, is a stubborn devotee, and Pṛthu Maharaj is kind of flexible devotee. So he's willing to change change himself. And then sometimes, like, we also become very stubborn in our attitude. So what happens is here, like, you may have the best spiritual master in the world, but if you are not willing to be corrected, then what can even the best spiritual master do? Many times the spiritual master also hesitate to tell the disciple that because he knows that if I tell him, he's not going to follow, and that will make Guru Aparadh. So then they had to keep quiet. So here we have seen that Pṛthu Maharaj is willing to be corrected. He's very flexible. He's willing to go according to the advice of his seniors. And that's how he was advised, like, kindly excuse Indra, because the Prabhupada here uses the word cooperation. So one level of cooperation is like, no, we don't fight with each other, we don't shout with each other, or we don't beat each other. But the real purpose of cooperation is like, one has to love each other. That's how the cooperation has to be there. And in one sense, like, more than cooperation is a collaboration is essential, because cooperation means, okay, you have your viewpoints, I have my viewpoints, I tolerate you, you tolerate me. But collaboration is the one thing where both the parties have common understanding and they are striving to achieve that common goal. Whereas in cooperation, sometimes, like, somehow or other we work together, manage to work together. But when we collaborate with each other, then what happens is you can achieve the goal very easily and you can have a very nice Vaishnava relationship in the collaborative mindset. So here we see that Pṛthu Maharaj exhibited the quality of a leader, that about forgiveness. So what happens is that when we exhibit this quality of forgiveness, we attract the blessings of superiors. And when we have the blessings of superiors, they give us an empowerment and we can do many things. And in this forgiveness, the quality, as in our spiritual circles we understand, it's a landmark of a sadhu. And forgiveness is essential quality. But if you see, even in the modern days, even in the criminal laws also, there is a concept of forgiveness. The president of India has a right to forgive a person even if he is convicted by the highest court in India. Or in the court in India also, like, when they give a judgment, but if they see the good behavior of a criminal, they can also reduce that punishment. So this is how we say the forgiveness, the quality that is so essential so that we can neutralize the situation. Now if we see that there is a doctor And then sometimes the patient comes, especially when children comes, and then they become angry with the doctor and they start shouting at the patients. But still the doctor will tries to treat him because there is a concern and compassion in his mind. He doesn't see the outward behavior. So no matter what way the patient is behaving, doctor will always do his duty. So here we say that great quality of forgiveness is like Parikshit Maharaj. He also did not retaliate against the Shrungi. He forgave him. Then we have seen the example of Chitraketu Maharaj. He also did not counteract the curse that is given by Mother Parvati. And that is why we see that forgiveness and non-enviousness, like they go well together. So forgiveness is just not like we are not hating each other. It is this quality of a Vaishnava is very essential. Like somebody has that quality, and even if that person is not wearing Vaishnava dress, he will be considered as a great person, great. And somebody doesn't have this quality, and if he has a Vaishnava dress, but he will not be considered as the Vaishnavas. So those people who are highly intelligent, they don't hate or have malice about others. And usually what happens is they point to the disease or the sin. They don't have nothing grudge against the person. So this is how we have seen that ornament of sadhu is considered that like he is the most forgiving person, and person who is like forgiving is peaceful depending on the order of Krishna. He becomes ultimately victorious. And that's how we've seen that here that the Supreme Lord Vishnu comes and then he talks to Pṛthu Maharaj about the knowledge of the soul, then super soul. And then he tells that now you should remain unaffected of the modes and understanding your real position. Then he tells him like you should protect your citizens and situate that they derive the best results. That means all your citizens should become Krishna conscious. And then Lord Vishnu himself says like, "No, I'm pleased with you. So ask any benedictions that you want to ask." So here we are seeing that by the Pṛthu Maharaj's behavior and his qualities, the Lord has become so captivated. And actually, what initiation means, like one lives by the quality of Vaishnavas. So we may not have these qualities at present, but we work or we make an attempt to behave according to that, and that's the austerity we have to follow. Because usually outsiders, they will see what activities you are performing, what is your behavior. They may not be concerned about your consciousness. And this is how like we have seen that Lord becomes pleased by the behavior of a person, not by the external activities. And here what happens is like previous chapter it is explained like Lord Indra, he takes the dress of a sannyasi, and because of that the line of irreligion starts. So many times we see that there is a fight between the two leaders, and what happens is it affects the innocent people. Some people may be devotee, but when they see this kind of fights happening with the leaders, they may lose faith in Krishna consciousness or they may leave from the path of bhakti. Whereas if they see a cordial relationship with the devotees, then there is a potency that even the demon, a person who has a demoniac mentality, he can get converted into devotees by looking at the good qualities in the devotees. You have seen it in Krishna Leela that Kamsa sends Aghasura to kill Krishna in Vrindavan. And Aghasura comes to Vrindavan, and when he comes and sees that Krishna is playing nicely with the Gopas, so even though he is a demon and he has come with the intention of killing, but for a moment he gets stunned by looking at such a extremely good, pleasing dealings between the Gopas. And then Krishna kills him, took his life force. And then what happens is he attains the liberation, because what happens is all sinful activities goes, and only what he did is he just for a while observed the excellent behavior of the Gopas, and because of that, he got tremendously benefited by just looking at that excellent behavior. So this is how here we see that Indra then falls down, tries to fall down at the feet of Pṛthu Maharaj. Then he starts begging for the forgiveness. So what happened is, the so intelligent way the Brahma and Viṣṇu has acted, that they brought out good things eventually from the Indra's side. And that's how he begged the forgiveness. So actually, the human being is made of good activities, the good qualities, and bad qualities. It is the circumstances and that will bring good qualities in him, and certain circumstances the bad qualities will come. Or like the way you behave, sometimes then good qualities of that Vaishnavas will come up forefront, or in certain situations, in certain behaviors, the bad qualities will come out. So leader has to be extremely careful that how he navigates the situation in such a way that the good qualities of other persons are magnified. So the thing is, but for good qualities, you need proper samskaras. Actually, everybody is born with the good qualities. But in Kali Yuga, we find because of the influence of Kali Yuga, so many bad qualities gets into our life. And this is how we see that whatever association we keep, it will be divine association or demonic association. And that's how the things will manifest. So it is stated, this purport Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that Vaishnava's duty is to adjust the cause of their envy, so that we can avoid perpetual fights. Because what happens is that there are people outside in the world, whole their life goes in fighting in the courts. And there are people who are fighting in the courts for like last 50 years, 60 years. The fight goes on like perpetually over certain issues. But a real Vaishnava is like he adjusts themselves and focus the purpose of life, that is to please Lord Krishna. And then eventually we see that Lord gives mercy to Pṛthu Maharaj, and then Pṛthu Maharaj also worships the Supreme Lord. So ultimately we see like Pṛthu Maharaj is a great leader, and Indra is also a great leader in his own right. So leadership means like it's a great responsibility, very serious responsibility. And leader has to have a knowledge of what is right and wrong. So what do you mean by knowledge of what is right and wrong? Means according to dharma what is right, and according to dharma what is wrong. Otherwise, like there are so many people who can influence thousands of people. We have another example of Second World War, that Adolf Hitler whenever he would give a speech, like he could attract thousands of people. And so, and it's just like those days there were radios were there, and people will be glued to the radios to hear what he's speaking, and he could motivate and he could sell whatever his ideology was there. And his thinking was that they are the Aryan people, they are the best race, and on the world only they should rule, and eventually the whole world should be only that race. So he could somehow convince the whole country about his idea. The First World War, Germany was destroyed. He could take people from such a economically damaged nation, such a hopeless situation, and motivate them to work. And then what happens is people followed what he was saying, and eventually we found he met with miserable death, and people could eventually understand that actually we were cheated by him. So this is how, like, it's not that how you influence the people, but you have to have a knowledge of dharma, and that's how you should guide the people. Otherwise, if you are misguided, then you could cause such a havoc in the world. So what happens is a real leader will make a positive contribution in the lives of the people, and he can make a good difference in the lives of the people. Because what happens is a leader, like he he is at a top position. We have seen there are so many people who have achieved the great heights in the material life, but the more you achieve, the more people become envious of you, and they are looking at, like, no, there is a small deviation, a small thing that happens, then immediately that will be magnified and it will bring you down. So the leader has to be very careful that one simple moment of temptation can ruin totally that person's life. And that's why we have seen that those people whose life is not based on proper dharmic principle, they make one mistake, either immoral act or cheating, and then they collapse from their top position. Even in France, like, they had one king. His name was Louis, and then what he did is, for himself, he made a huge palace and decorated that palace with so many costly things. And his habit was to invite all the prominent people in the country to come and have a big parties, and then he would give them lavish gifts to them. But then what happened is like, all those people came, attended the parties, and they eventually became envious of him, that he has such a opulence and he is throwing such a opulence. And then what happens is they became envious. There was the one who came against him, and not only beheaded him, beheaded his wife also. So this is what happens is, like, if your life is not based on a dharmic principle, you may achieve a great opulence, but you will not be able to maintain it, and you will collapse. And we have seen, like, Duryodhana, that's another character we see in Mahabharata. So he wanted the position of the king, but actual position of the king is to serve. So he wanted position of the king, but not the qualities of the king, because he was affected by greed, he was affected by envy. And even though he was trained by the same guru, Dronacharya was training Pandavas, he was training Kauravas also. And he was very intelligent as well. But the way he used to speak and the way he made his schemes definitely indicated that he had a great intelligence. But the foundation of his life was not based on truth, but it was based on illusion, that how I can use all these powers and training that I have got for the service of my ego, how I can achieve the top position. Whereas the Yudhishthira Maharaj, the way he ruled the kingdom, he never made any distinction between the rich person, a poor person, even the animals. He treated them so well, he treated them lovingly, that all the subjects felt they are the part of family of Maharaj Yudhishthira. Because there was a great love in the heart of Yudhishthira Maharaj, and he was giving that love to others, and that's how the people were also reciprocating in their dealings with each other as well as Yudhishthira Maharaj. So that is very essential. Like many times we hear people complain like there are no loving relationship and so many other things. But the point is it has to begin with us. If there is a love in our heart, then we can always perceive love in others' behavior, and other devotees also will reciprocate in that. Because what happens if there is no loving relation that we have it in our heart, other person may be loving, but you won't be able to even detect that other person has such a great love towards us. And that is why ultimately we see our own founder Acharya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, like the kind of disciples that he created, like they were willing to work for him for 24 hours a day and for the entire life, and he didn't pay them even one single pay. Like there are so many corporates, if they have to get people work for them, they have to give them very huge perks, so many facilities, and still they are offered little more better perks. They leave that and go to somewhere else. Whereas Prabhupada could get people to work for him because people understood that he is their true well-wisher, and all his disciples could see that he is speaking the truth, is not cheating them, and the kind of love that was emanating from his heart. Even though people met him for a small amount of time, and sometimes even people did not meet him, but they just heard from his disciples, they also developed so much love for him. So Srila Prabhupada spoke Bhagavad Gita. He lived Bhagavad Gita with the integrity, and that gave the inspiration to all the followers of Srila Prabhupada. Even all of us, his grand disciples, also have lots of inspiration, because we have seen Prabhupada. Many of us may not have seen Prabhupada, but we have heard about Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was so humble that he never took even one single drop of credit for himself. He always considered himself as the humble servant of his spiritual master. And he gave us a simple thing, if you just chant the holy name and live by the standard of principles that our scriptures have given, then you will be also be able to do what I have done. You will be able to bring change in the lives of the people. So in the end, we can see the Vedic leadership is like the king follows the principles given by the great sages, principles that are stated in the scriptures. There is no mistake in his rulings, and that's a perfect management, and that's how the citizens are pious. They become happy, and they also go back home, back to Godhead. We see in Maharaj Pṛthu's kingdom that how people perfected goal of their lives. So with this, we see this was in one sense, a small conflict between the two leaders, but how the intervention of the superior authorities, they could eventually bring out good things in Indra as well as Pṛthu Maharaj, and could sort the situation in such a way that entire world got benefited. Hare Krishna. So are there any questions or comments?
more often than not, the mind can either think bad or good. What exactly is meant by taking a neutral stance? Can you just explain
Yes.
something? That-
Say suppose like no, I will explain it like uh, let's say your friend is undergoing certain difficulties. Uh, that time we gave him a good advices, and let's say that same situation happens in our life. Not necessarily all those good advice will come to our mind. What comes to our mind is my side, my viewpoints, my stand, and we keep on justifying that. So what is being told is like when you are going through certain crisis, keep yourself out of that crisis. You think that your friend is undergoing that crisis, and you are advising that friend. So that that mind has changed the role. He has taken the advice, because what happens is we are very good in giving advice, but we are very poor in following that advice in our own life. So that's how, like, no, for us to understand, for us to rectify ourselves and see the situation from different point of view. So like when you are advising your friend, you're not in that situation, and your mind works excellent on the solution aspects. Whereas what happens is when you're undergoing to that difficult situation, you tend to usually confront or justify your stand and always think that how other party is wrong and only my stand is this. So if you just come out of that situation, then you can understand like the whole picture, and we can understand like where I am justified and where I am unreasonable in my viewpoints. And when you give advice to others, the same thing, like na, we can get some inspiration to follow ourselves. Okay.
Thank you.
Can we give it to Mataji here first? Okay. No, उनको ही दे देना, हरी बोल, उनको ही दे दे.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you very much for the class. Prabhuji, you told about Duryodhan, but sometimes we think as a new devotee, ki Duryodhan, he himself had some past karma. Also his parenthood was like that, ki his father was ambitious and all. Because of that, maybe he may blame his upbringing or past life, that because of this I am like this. Similarly, myself I am telling, sometimes for our difficulties we tend to blame our parents or our upbringing or past life or subconscious things, and this, because of this I am like this. So we sometimes are not ready to forgive or not ready to accept the faults of our own faults. Rather we blame others. So what is the solution?
So the thing is like this is just an excuse that we give so that we don't surrender or we don't follow the good behavior. So in this things is what happens is like Narad Muni's example, we can say he was the uh, son of a maid servant, and then his mother also died at a very young age. But he could absorb good things. So ultimately, if you want to absorb good things, then the background and everything is not essential. Only thing is you have to willing to change. Basically, you don't want to change, and you want to give different excuses. So this is one of the excuses not to change. So what we have to see, what is ultimately good for me, and accordingly we'll have to behave. And this is nothing but just an excuse for us not to follow the things. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanvat Pranam. Thank you for the lecture. And my question is, you said that we should show forgiveness. So sometimes some people intentionally disrespect our spiritual master or our deities or Ishtadev. So shall we forgive them or not?
Thing is, you know what is the Shastric injunctions.
We should not forgive them.
The thing is, like you should because you are just asking a question without giving the clear background. So the thing is, better you consult your immediate authority and they will guide you better in this. Okay?
Thank you,
Now we
Prabhuji.
can conclude.
Thank you very much, Sanat Kumar Prabhu, for your time today. And on behalf of GBC College and leaders from all over the world, we wanted to express our gratitude for giving us shelter for the last 11 days. And not only giving us shelter, but also exemplifying these wonderful qualities that you have expressed in your talk today. By cooperating with each other to manifest this beautiful oasis in Mumbai city, well, outskirts of Mumbai city. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I request that all our leaders here from different parts of the world, if you all agree with what I've expressed and you all felt really welcomed and cared for at Govardhan Ecovillage, please loudly express your gratitude by loudly chanting Hari Bol 3 times. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you for tolerating certain inconvenience, like temple and many places the renovation work is going on in this country. The place
Sounds
is
like
also,
music to our ears.
for some it may be. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Prabhu? Oh, okay. Thank you.